here we have the Traxxas Jato 3.3. This course was donated to me by Terran Bear, and as you guys can tell, well, it's a bit beat up. But that's okay. I've always wanted a Jato, guys, and honestly, this is the best way to get it, rebuilding one. As you guys can easily tell, this RC is far from running. There is some key parts that are missing for it, but that's okay. I can easily replace those. So in order to get this thing up and running, I am going to need a new air filter, an exhaust, a radio, and receiver. There's a few other things I need to go ahead and replace on this RC too, and once I get all this done, I can go ahead and start doing upgrades for it. So let's go ahead and take this thing completely apart, do some cleaning, put it back together, and get it up and running. Well, it took a long time, but as you can see, I took everything that I needed to take apart. And there's still a lot more to do. First of all, I need to go ahead and take apart all four of the shocks, rebuild those. I need to go ahead and take apart the engine, clean that. I need to also just take all these parts and scrub them because a lot of these are just downright filthy. I mean, look at that. Ugh. Alright, so I got the engine apart and it's a little dirty. It's not too bad. I'm just going to go ahead, get some WD-40 sprayed in there and scrub it out with some coffee filters and I should be good. So before I go any further, I do need to go ahead and straighten out these servos so I can go ahead and get things properly installed. However, I can't do that without a remote and receiver, but thankfully, I've got one. Here we have the FlySky FS GT2B. It's a basic, simple model, but guys, I absolutely love this. Let's go ahead and open this thing up and get it installed. Alright, and there you have it, guys. Check it out. It's a simple but very, very effective radio. Inside, of course, we have a LiPo for the remote and, of course, the receiver itself, which we need to go ahead and install. So, as it should always go with the Nitro, the servo for the throttle should always go into channel 2, and of course, steering always goes into channel 1. So, we have the servo for steering going into channel 1. We have the servo for throttle going into channel 2, and then at the very top we have the power. With all that plugged in, we're going to go ahead and tuck this into position, push all the wires down. We're going to get the antenna, put on the antenna too. Then we're going to put that through the little groove right there and stick it into this position. Get the antenna tie down, slide that down, and then screw it. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on the radio and keep everything at 0. Then I'm going to go ahead and plug in the battery into the receiver. Then I'm going to turn it on. Everything's going to center. Everything works, and I am good to go. Well guys, it was a very long, tedious process. But this Jato has been rebuilt. Finally! Oh, that was a pain. But yes, everything does work on it. Throttle's fine, and of course, steering is perfect. Oh. Now, there's a couple of things I should go ahead and mention before I end this video. First of all, this is not how the fuel lines come stock on the Jato. I just didn't have fuel lines that could replace this one. I really did do kind of the bare minimum just to get this Jato up and running. I need a much longer fuel line that actually loops through these two clips twice, and then it plugs into the fuel tank. Now there is something that I am missing from this build, and that is the spacers that go in between the engine and the engine mount. I need one for each side, because without those spacers, this engine sits too low and you can't properly put it into the gears. But what I ended up doing was just use some 3mm nuts. That did the trick for now. The other things that I'm missing is, well, for one, I am missing this rubber cover that goes right here that covers the charging port for this battery. Instead of having to pull the battery out, you can just plug in the charger right there and it charges the battery. And obviously I am missing the easy start system. For now I just have the pull start, but that will work. Eventually I would like to get the easy start though. Now there is a couple other things I'm gonna have to take care of as well. For instance, these two front links aren't the same size. I didn't realize that, but thankfully I was able to screw this one down all the way where it was the same length as this one. And unfortunately, one of the rear hex hubs was stripped. I am going to have to replace that. In fact, I should probably replace that before I run this RC at all. And another modification that I did to this RC is that since there was no more rubber boots for the drive shafts, I went ahead and put the top on the bottom and the bottom on the top. And there's one other thing I should mention. There is no front sway bars that came with this RC. But since you have to buy the whole set, I'm going to go ahead and just do that as an upgrade in a later date. So there are plenty of brand new parts that are on this RC, including a front and rear shock tower, front body mount, a new exhaust, as well as exhaust hookup. We have a new lid and pull string for the fuel tank. We have a new receiver and remote. We have new lids for the chassis. And of course, I have a brand new air filter and transmission, as well as a glow plug. So I'm sure the question on everyone's mind now is, can it start? Well, unfortunately, no, I am not going to be able to get this to run, because even when I clog the exhaust and I pull the string, you can see that there is no fuel being pushed into the carburetor. So somewhere there is a hole in this setup, so there is not enough compression to move the fuel. Not good. That sucks. Okay, so one of the fuel lines was cut, so I went ahead and replaced that. Checked everything else out. Let's see if that does it. Alright, it looks like there's some compression. It works. Cool. Let's see if we can get her running. Alright, So I went ahead and I drained all the rest of the fuel that was in there. I just burned the residual. I'm gonna go ahead and put some WD-40 through here, get it cleaned up, and I can go ahead and start doing run videos and upgrades. So once again, thank you Terran Bear for this awesome donation. Because of you, I now have a Jato 3.3.